The forest had been quieter lately, not because there was no wind or because no one was speaking, but because Little Deer had stopped talking. She no longer chimed in during gatherings and didn't exchange glances during music practice. She always sat a little farther away, listened to everyone chat, smiled softly, and left early. At first, no one thought much of it, but later, Little Gray Wolf began to frown. Does she not want to play with us anymore? Even Little Red Fox looked uneasy. She seems kind of distant. Everyone started to avoid Little Deer, not because they disliked her, but because they didn't know how to approach her. Only Mimi noticed something was different. Little Deer always arrived earlier than everyone else and left last. She didn't say much, but her eyes always seemed to carry many things she didn't speak. One day, after music practice, Mimi slowly packed up, then casually asked, "Are you okay lately?" Little Deer froze for a second. She nodded, smiled a little, then lowered her head again. "I know you don't not want to speak," Mimi said gently. "You're just still figuring out how to." Little Deer looked up at him. Something in her eyes flickered. That evening, Mimi invited Little Deer to visit Grandpa Owl, the one in the forest who understood others even when they didn't speak. They walked a long way, through fallen leaves and across small streams, until they reached an old tree. Grandpa Owl didn't ask any questions. He simply spread his wings, let them sit down, and slowly passed over a warm cup of pinecone tea. "This tea doesn't need sugar," he said, "and it doesn't need an answer." Little Deer didn't speak, but her fingers held the cup gently. Her eyes shimmered slightly. Grandpa Owl said no more. He only nodded as if to say, "I know." That night, they stayed at Raccoon's small wooden house nearby. There was no clock on the wall. On the table were blank note papers and boxes of colored pencils. The walls were covered with drawings, some of curled-up animals, some with only eyes, full of quiet feelings. "This place," said Raccoon while heating milk, "is for the ones who don't know how to speak yet. Some people write, some people draw, some speak with just their eyes." Little Deer walked up to the note table and picked up a pen. She didn't write words. She only drew a pair of ears long, drooping, listening intently. Mimi stood beside her and whispered, "Are those mine?" Little Deer looked at him, and for the first time in a while, her smile looked like it used to. The next morning, the forest gathering started again. Everyone laughed and chatted like usual. Little Gray Wolf spoke directly as always, and Little Red Fox still spun in and out of conversations. This time, Little Deer came too. She sat among them, not overly quiet, but not especially talkative either. After Little Gray Wolf finished a sentence, Little Deer softly added, "I think I kind of feel that way too." Everyone paused, then smiled. Later, Mimi wrote in his notebook, "A voice isn't only spoken out loud. Sometimes it's in a glance, sometimes in a gesture, and sometimes in the one who simply sits beside you. And the most precious voice is the one that finally dares to be heard." It's okay. We'll wait. You don't need to rush. Even when you're silent, you deserve to be understood.